podcast is brought to you by Alldus International, supplying your expert AI and digital transformation staffing needs across the US and Europe. Today, you are listening to our AI in Action series, where leading minds in AI from across the world share their story, success, and advice. AI in Action cuts through the hype and explores the true impact of artificial intelligence in our world today.
You're listening to AI in Action. I'm your host, JP Valentine. Our guest today is Olya Caliujnaia. Olya is the co-founder and CEO at Sanlo. Olya, welcome to the show.
Hi, JP. Thank you. Excited to be here.
Yeah, and we're excited to have you. So, Olya, let's start with yourself, please. Can you give us a background on your journey through technology, from where you got started, some of the roles you've held along the way, and what's led you to where you are today as the co-founder and CEO at Sanlo?
My tech journey actually started in venture capital. I started at a firm working with very early stage companies in the early days of mobile app economy. And then over time, I transitioned into product management. So most of my career really has been a product manager at different companies. One of those companies was in gaming, a company called Playfish, and we built free-to-play games in social worlds. The company got acquired by EA, so I got a chance to work on some of the mobile games and some of the Max's IP, like SimCity and Sim Social in particular. And then, I worked at a company called Images, which is a stock photography company. And one of the major attractions there was, again, continuously working with creative products, if you will, and with people who create visual and very important products for other folks to use. And then I moved into fintech. Fintech was and is, I think, a very important part of the economy and a huge enablement for the world, and can be a huge enablement for the world. So I went to a company called Sigvik, and Sigvik is doing wealth management tech, bringing investment advice, investment management to consumers. And the big theme of my professional life was that I always wanted to build something from scratch. I wanted to build a company. So there was this moment in time, more so on the personal level, that I looked at my daughter, who was 3 years old at that time, and I figured she's already 3. It's time to build. It's time to create a company. And that was honestly the big push to actually start making motions in that direction. So ultimately, skipping forward, I rejoined venture world more so as an entrepreneur in residence, very much with a focus of creating a company. And in late 2020, we started Sanlo. That was the official birth date of the company.
Thank you for the background, and it's always good to have people on the podcast who are coming from the VC and product world, because it lends a different perspective as opposed to just coming straight up through the engineering technology path. But you still are a technologist at heart, but you've just saw the other side of the conversation. But you've set it up nicely to talk about the origins behind Sanlo. So tell us all about Sanlo as a business, who you are, what you do, what the mission of the organization is, and then we can talk about what role and use of AI and data that goes on a day-to-day basis.
The big mission is really creating products that empower game and app developers. And we're coming at it from a financial perspective. What products, what services need to exist in order for the developers to be able not just to exist and survive, but thrive. So what we build at Sanlo is a full stack of financial products specifically created for game and app developers. And when I say game and app developers, I'm very much referring to it could be a small size developer that may be just 3 people and they may have one live game and they are earlier in their journey, or it can be a developer who maybe 200 people and they have multiple titles out there in the world. And the common theme across those types of companies is that there's certain peculiarities around how they run the business, how they manage live ops, how they build games, and how they measure success of their products. The other common theme is also that our demographic, they're independent and they want to maintain their independence. They want to be in control of how they build and scale their products. And for that, you need to have strong business foundation and you need to have a strong financial foundation. So that's where we come in. The first product that we went out into the market with is providing non-dilutive capital, but there's a pretty aggressive and ambitious roadmap that we have in place that goes beyond capital. We think about the full stack of products as in payments, treasury management, financial planning and analysis, and payroll management, talent management, and so on. So capital is just the beginning for us. This is where we saw the most immediate need from the customer base that we work with. So that's what we're focusing on right now. And we're already building out more products in the stack that we are envisioning to do over time.
Thank you for that. And again, from conversations you and I have had previously, there's such a gap in the market for this type of service because you're bringing a set level of expertise that many of the app developers in gaming don't quite know how to navigate the finance world, or whether it comes to funding or just getting set up for payments. So it's great to learn about the origin story. I want to spend some time now talking about the technology behind all of this. You obviously bring your own skill set, but you've brought in some partners and collaborators who are supporting on the technology side, and you're already using data analytics and different aspects of AI on the core product. Can you give us some insight into what it's like behind the scenes there, particularly if we were a member of the technology team?
Yeah, so everything that we do is very much based on data. A lot of decision making when it comes to whether we provide capital to a developer and on what terms is very much based on data. So that's our big differentiation point versus more traditionally available sources of funding to developers. So if we look at it from a macro level perspective, there are about 15 million developers around the world. It's a massive demographic. And there's a lot of data that's available from third-party sources. There are a number of data aggregators and BI tools. So you can think of from distribution platforms like App Store and Google Play, Steam, Epic Games, etc. There is publicly available data there, or data available through APIs. There's also a lot of data that developers themselves watch very closely. And I think that's one of the very unique and beautiful things about game and larger app developers is that more often than not, they're very much in tune with how their product performs, and they're very data savvy. So from our perspective, combining those two at a high level, combining those two data sets, the alternative data sources, as well as the data that developers share with us, based on that, we can put together a pretty comprehensive picture of not just the historical performance of a particular product, game, or app, but we can also build out, based on the data that we have, a pretty granular picture of what the future might look like. So again, data is a massive component in what we do, and this is actually something that allows us to be much faster and more efficient in being able to assess financial and product performance, past and future, and be able to have a pretty quick turnaround on providing financing to the developers.
I want to talk about a recent customer experience to see if there's an example you can give us from a success story where you partnered with some developers and helped them get the product to market, but also supporting the finance side. Is there any recent stories you could share that would demonstrate to the audience just how effective and helpful this has been for your users?
Yeah. So I can give a couple of examples, but let me give you one first, and we can always cover more. But that company is a gaming company. They have mobile titles. And when we started working with them, they had one of their games in soft launch. And soft launch effectively means that the game is only launched in test markets to really test out the basics, like whether your user acquisition works, meaning your cost per install is lower than your LTV of a customer, that your monetization works, meaning your players actually pay, or you have enough of a demographic paying for the game so you can, again, have a profitable business out of this. Measuring engagement, that this is the fun component of the game, that the people keep coming back and they spend time in it. So what happens in the soft launch oftentimes is that you may have a pretty jumpy performance, right? Because you're just testing, and you may sometimes have a smaller sample size. So in case of this company, we started working with them when they were still in the soft launch. And the challenge that they had was that if you go to a more traditional financiers at the time when your game is in the soft launch, you just don't have all the historical traditionally requested amount of historical performance to be able to obtain that financing. Yet at the same time, they needed to make sure that they have funding to invest into marketing and making sure that they're bringing new players into the game. So they didn't actually have really any options to have this kind of funding based on where they were with the game. So what we did with them, based on the, again, combination of having access to this alternative data sources and benchmarking from the industry of similar genres, similar platforms, similar stages of games, similar types of studios, and looking at the data from their soft launch performance closely alongside with them, we were able to actually provide them with the financing that they could invest into marketing at the earlier stage. With that company, it was pretty impactful because they did not really have any options at the time, given the stage of the company, or given the stage of the game rather than the company. So that was an important aspect for them to be able to have funding to finance into marketing.
Amazing.
And what we saw was that the metrics actually worked. Their retention was good. Their average revenue per user was strong. So based on the data, we were comfortable to say that even though this game is just in a soft launch, there's enough of sample data and there's enough of consistency that we feel comfortable to provide funding. So they were able to scale the game.
You are listening to the Alldus podcast. When you're looking to scale your team, or if you are interested in showcasing your company in a future episode, reach out today. Or if you're in the market for a new role, visit our website to view open positions, www.alldus.com.
I want to switch our direction now to go back to the team, but looking ahead to the future of the business. You and I spoke previously about the roadmap and the exciting projects that are in store, but also the build that's going to be required. As the CEO, you sit at the top table, but you're also working closely with your co-founder and CTO, Will. Can you give us some insight into what the next 12 to 24 months look like at Sanlo, particularly speaking to an audience of data scientists and engineers? What's going to be happening? What sort of growth do you expect? And on top of that, what opportunities are there going to be for people who are interested in this field of platform support for gaming on the finance side? Who could join and what are you looking for?
So starting at a more macro level and vision level for the company, for us, it's about, again, enabling, empowering game developers and larger app developers around the world across different platforms that they may have live titles on. So far, we've started with App Store and Google Play, very much covering mobile gaming. But there's PC gaming, there's browser-based games, there are console games. And again, getting to work with those platforms is a massive opportunity and a goal of ours to expand our demographic and be able to work with more developers. So some of those are very important aspects of the work that we're doing on the data side, ability to not just integrate with those platforms, but also be able to use that data in a fast and smart and efficient way for us to be able to then produce financial insights and be able to do credit risk assessment and ultimately provide funding to those companies. So when it comes to the team, something to put in perspective, we're 20 people at the time, and 16 people out of 20 people are all the product team. So we're very much focused on, we're a product-led organization, we're building the product, and data is an important piece of that. So platform coverage that I mentioned is an important piece of that, and expanding into more platforms to unlock access to developers that operate across the whole universe of types of gaming. And then as it relates to data, the next simplistic question is, what do we do with that data? How do we make sure that we get this data to ourselves? How do we cleanse the data, and how do we digest the data and put it to good use to actually create easy to use, simple and efficient products when it comes to developer experience with us? Without going into specifics of individual line items that we have on our roadmap, when it comes to data specifically, it's also about how do we start using this data to be able to be even better and faster at projecting out the future and being proactive around our insights and advice to a developer as to what might be the best financial decisions for their business and when might be the right time for them to get the funding. All of this involves, again, smart usage of the data, and we're building out elements of AI as well, again, to be able to do that quickly and more accurately over time.
Final question from me, Olya. You're obviously at the early stages of this journey, but it has huge potential because there's always an increasing demand for services to help business founders and developers create these products. When you look at the potential for Sanlo and the growth that could happen over the next 1 to 2 years, what are you most excited about for the future of the business and the journey along the way?
What I'm most excited is about the fact that there's so many tools out there now that did not exist even 5 years ago. And those tools now allow us as Sanlo, allow us to be able to build a lot of products along the full stack that I was mentioning. So that's what I'm excited about. There are a lot of products that don't need to be built necessarily from scratch. And this is a huge enablement for us as the company to be able to build products that traditionally did not exist for the developers. So I think it's the sheer opportunity, just simply because it's the technology availability to us to be able to bring those products to life in a relatively short period of time is now existent, and which did not exist again a few years ago. And when I say about what I mean here is that, again, from the standpoint of capital, for example, companies that came to life offering revenue-based financing 10 years ago had a very different tech that they could work off in order to be able to bring those products to their customer base, whether it's e-commerce companies or SaaS companies, etc. Some of that tooling already exists, and we can leverage that to move faster. The other piece that's, I think, is very exciting for us is that it's a relatively blue ocean when it comes to creating those financial products for the developers. I think e-commerce merchants and SaaS companies are pretty well served by the fintech companies, but not so much the game and app developers. So I think there's a lot to be done there. And we take some inspiration from companies like Square or Stripe or Shopify, looking at what they've done for small merchants. And it's ability to create products that a smaller company can easily pick up and decide what's best for their business, and effectively debundling services that traditionally have been bundled by larger distribution platforms like Apple or Google or others. So I think this point about debundling some of the services and giving that power back to the developer in terms of what they want to use in their companies is what's very exciting about it. And again, the availability of certain solutions and tech is an important component of us being able to do that today versus what would have been possible a few years ago.
Olya, thank you so much for coming on today. It was great to learn about your background, the origin story behind Sanlo, the market that you're trying to serve, and the current and future use cases for data. I know that a lot of our audience will have an interest in gaming and app development, so it's great to hear about a service like Sanlo now available to those to help them along that way. So we wish you, the team, and everyone at Sanlo the best of luck in the months and years to come. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you, JP. Enjoyed the conversation.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Alldus podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. We are available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and any Android podcast of choice. You can also head over to our website, www.alldus.com, to listen to more podcasts, view our open roles, and stay up to date with industry news. Thanks for listening, and stay tuned for more great episodes coming very soon.